your part to prevent mosquito breeding. Mosquitoes will breed in any container that holds water.
Tightly cover water storage containers such as drums, barrels, buckets and tanks. If this cannot be done, pour cooking oil on the water surface. Punch holes in all tins, plastics and beverage boxes to prevent the collection of water before disposal. Cover all tires or fill with dirt to prevent water collection. Scrub all vases once per week to remove mosquito eggs. Use mosquito repellents to protect yourself from mosquito bites. Dispose of garbage properly by placing in plastic bags and securing properly to prevent water collection.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The hurricane season runs from June 1 through November 30. It normally peaks between August and October. Be prepared. Identify an area in your home and bring pets indoors. Keep pets on a leash or in a carrier. Store at least a week's supply of food and drinking water for your pet. Monitor your radio or television for weather updates and instructions. Be prepared.
Do your part to prevent mosquito breeding. Mosquitoes will breed in any container that holds water.
Tightly cover water storage containers such as drums, barrels, buckets and tanks. If this cannot be done, pour cooking oil on the water surface. Punch holes in all tins, plastics and beverage boxes to prevent the collection of water before disposal. Cover all tires or fill with dirt to prevent water collection. Scrub all vases once per week to remove mosquito eggs. Use mosquito repellents to protect yourself from mosquito bites. Dispose of garbage properly by placing in plastic bags and securing properly to prevent water collection.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Me, I go show them my way of justice.
I'm abused.
I need legal advice. I don't deserve this.
The truth of the matter is, justice there for all of it. The Ministry of Justice has trained more than 5,600 persons in restorative justice practices. More than 200,000 victims have been supported by the victim services. Legal aid has reached thousands island-wide. Make we talk it out, not fight it out. Call 888 Justice today.
If you no want pop down and fenke, you fi burn mosquito and run with dengue. So no make water settle in open container. For them we breed up under the danger. Usher them out, run them away. Zap them with the zapper and down them with spray. Use mosquito net and mosquito screen. Protect your household, now make them come in. If you no want pop down and fenke, if you burn mosquito and run with dengue. If pain lick your head and your joints and your eye, and you want fever meat and your temperature high, it could be dengue, don't hesitate. See a doctor, don't self-medicate. For some painkiller can make you bleed and you will try to recover and don't succeed. We no want pop down and fenke. We fi burn mosquito and run with dengue.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
Hi, I'm Donna Unis Blake, Program Director for the Nature Conservancy in Jamaica. Did you know that 2023 was the hottest year ever in the history of recorded temperatures in Jamaica? And nowhere has the heat been more scorching than in our capital city, Kingston. All happening in the midst of a construction boom and urban heat island effects that is challenging traditional construction practices and prompting us to find more novel ways to build to beat the heat. We can learn from city-states like Singapore, which is integrating nature-based solutions in their urban designs, manifesting as eye-catching green roofs, vertical gardens and green walls. Plants provide shade, reduce heat absorption by buildings, and release water vapor to provide a cooling effect and result in savings on air conditioning and other energy costs. Have you considered how nature-based solutions can make that distinctive difference to your next development? Learn more by visiting the United Nations Environment Programme project website, cityadapt.com, or simply scan this QR code right here. As Jamaica adapts to climate change, you can build better to beat the heat.
Watch the trend, pick up the trend. This are the trend for all the youths them. Watch the trend, pick up the trend. TREND. Big up the trend for education, teachers and the students. A fully bright future, yes, that are the new trend. Better governance, partner with the parents. Follow the big trend, elevate the youth them. Improve the schools, track performance, access and attendance. From infant, primary to university students. Turn up the skills training, full steam we are giving. Follow the big trend, elevate the schools. Yeah. Watch the trend, pick up the trend. This are the trend for all the youths them. Watch the trend, pick up the trend. TREND. For more technology, yes, and better planning, quality education, that's what should be trending. From principals to EOs, everybody winning. Follow the ministry, we're changing the system. Watch the trend, pick up the trend.
This is Trend, Transforming Education for National Development, a program designed by the Ministry of Education and Youth to transform Jamaica's education system for a brighter tomorrow.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Most major illnesses that affect Jamaicans are caused by unhealthy lifestyles. Over 50% of Jamaicans are overweight. 1 in 3 Jamaicans has high blood pressure. 1 in 8 Jamaicans has diabetes. 17% of Jamaicans have high cholesterol. A healthy lifestyle can reduce the risk of most of these diseases. Things like regular exercise and adequate rest can play an important role in maintaining good health. The other major consideration is eating healthy. The question is, how do you walk into a restaurant or fast food outlet and identify the healthier menu items? Better For You is an initiative to help Jamaicans to eat healthier. Restaurants and fast food outlets can voluntarily participate by identifying the items on their menu that meet the food-based dietary guidelines for Jamaica. These menu items would be easily identified with the Better For You logo, so customers can quickly identify healthier meal options by looking at the menu or menu board. Once they see the Better For You logo, they can confidently order that menu item, knowing that it's a healthier choice. Better For You will help Jamaicans to make better choices and prompt restaurants to add better options to their menu. Better For You is better for everyone. Good health begins with better choices.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
Since 2016, 156,000 more Jamaicans are working. This is more than any other time in our history. Your government is caring for you.
New buses, including an electric option, more Wi-Fi hotspots and training in coding. The Jamaica Urban Transit Company received 50 diesel and 6 compressed natural gas CNG buses in August and November, a welcomed relief for commuters.
This obviously will alleviate a lot of the frustration and, of course, the waiting time, which has been up to 2.5 hours for certain routes.
Going the eco-friendly route, JUTC rolled out its first electric bus for testing in April. The government also invested in a fire suppression system for JUTC buses that will automatically extinguish engine fires. Road safety remained a top priority in 2023 as the new Road Traffic Act came into effect on February 1. To enforce the act, a new ticket management system was implemented across Tax Administration Jamaica, the courts, Island Traffic Authority, and the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Major upgrades were undertaken at the island's 2 main airports. The Sangster International Airport runway extension work continued, and an additional $70 million was allocated to expand the check-in hall, outbound security, car park, and other areas. At the Norman Manley International Airport NMIA, new air conditioning units were installed, plus other upgrades. Jamaica's air travel safety reached a new level with the creation of a National Aviation Safety Plan. In the maritime field, Jamaica and Canada signed a reciprocal recognition agreement for its seafarers to legally work on ships sailing under the Jamaican and Canadian flags.
There are several impactful achievements for the Transport Authority in 2023. The true aspect of our new licensing management system called TIMS. We have gone through the various teething pains and we have done the necessary tweaking that were required, and we are very excited about the new prospect in terms of the Transport Authority's capability to deliver a license online to our customers. We have also concluded works on the Transport Authority's regulation, and that regulation is currently for CPC.
I think the whole management of the transport sector is doing much better than over the last probably 5 years or so.
Jamaica's digital transformation in 2023 was broadened with the expansion of internet access island-wide. All 14 parish capitals are now outfitted with public Wi-Fi sites. The National Broadband, Community Wi-Fi Hotspots, and Community Access Points programs were also strengthened. Under the TAP 3 coding program, USF and Heart NSTA Trust provided training to 100 coders. 40 coders who graduated at the start of 2023 received immediate employment with Amber Group Limited. The Universal Service Fund, USF, and eLearning Jamaica also signed a partnership to provide more technological support in schools. With the resumption of the Rural Electrification Program REP, several communities island-wide are set to receive regularized electricity. Also in 2023, the ministry started discussions around the creation of a national roadmap for a peaceful nuclear energy program.
It is important for us to recognize the broader benefits of incorporating a cost-competitive energy source, such as nuclear energy, as our dominant source of energy. The opportunities that it can present in terms of creation of new industries, employment and economic growth, and the overall well-being of Jamaicans can be enormous.
On the legislative agenda, a joint select committee of Parliament reviewed the Cybercrimes Act and put forward recommendations.
The committee supports the recommendation that there should be harsher penalties in relation to offences against children, and that there should be a distinction between the penalties for offences committed against children, by children, and adult offenders, and that the term of imprisonment be increased from 15 to 20 years for an adult who commits an act where the victim is a child.
Advancing Jamaica's transformation in science, energy, telecommunications, and transport was the top priority and outcome in 2023.
camping tent. I'm gonna show you why I'm about.
End up over here, son of a lift up now.
Welcome to Flatbridge. The infamous Dopey Church. I never afraid. If you wash your face with rice water, then you can see Dopey.
No, me don't want to say Dopey, no.
If I turn the yoke to the left, then the airplane will bank to the left.
Oh, that! Oh, that! Where's my bicycle, dog?
Love is love. But sometimes love isn't what we think it is.
Just this once, why can't I come first?
I know you love it, but love is supposed to be good for you, Annie.
Sometimes you have to fight for love.
I like you, Annie.
I get the whole being in love with a wrong man thing.
Wait, you mean me?
Yes, Danny. I mean you.
You really don't need this man.
I don't understand how you can even just up and leave us during this storm, Stanley. I need you here.
I'm not leaving here without you.
Sometimes you have to fight for yourself. When there's trouble in paradise, what do? Mirrors in Paradise, Sundays at 8 p.m. and Fridays at 8:30 p.m. right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Join us as we navigate this interwoven landscape, discovering how every portfolio and agency under the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation play a crucial role in national development, from housing to land. Right. NWC, why I don't have any water in my tap, to infrastructure and investment. So the government is not giving away any assets.
No, Danny.
All right.
Not at all.
Let's unravel the threads of success as we explore the MEGJC matrix.
As an inner city youth, I'm a duty to know the laws and my rights. These laws affect all our self-interest and safety.
The law says throwing garbage in public places or on other premises without consent will lead to prosecution. I see it online. I know my laws and my rights. Do you? Know your laws. Know your rights. Respect you.
Country experience on average in excess of 200 earthquakes per annum, which are minor, which most of them are minor in intensity, having magnitude of less than 4.0. These seismic events has proven how vulnerable Jamaica is to earthquake and its secondary events.
In 2023, Jamaica recorded 345 localized earthquakes, but only 14 were felt.
This is as a result of that tectonic movement or that plate movement that we see being propagated in our region, more or less in the Northern Caribbean, where we find Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico. We tend to find that that activity itself is as a response to the plate motion that is recorded there.
The unpredictability of earthquakes makes it harder to plan for them.
While there are signs when we expect excessive rainfalls, we can tell you whether there is going to be flooding. Even the temperature we can tell you based on the science. But we can't tell you when or where the earthquake will occur.
And that's why Jamaicans need to be more aware of earthquakes and, as best as possible, be prepared at all times. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, intends to continue its drive to increase population awareness on safety measures and best practices.
This is being pursued through a multi-sectorial, multi-agency approach to strengthen disaster preparedness and risk reduction, in addition to increasing disaster resilience in preparing for, responding to, and ultimately recovering from adverse earthquake events.
Even with this, the Minister of Local Government and Community Development still questions how aware Jamaicans are about the dangers of earthquakes.
As a country, we need now to expand our thinking. We need to ensure that our program of information and education is not just in the month of January, but every week, every month of the year. The question of earthquake and the consciousness as a country that is going to be required to take us through.
The ODPEM has been tasked with getting the message out about earthquake awareness and preparedness.
Going into the schools and engaging the business communities, the private sector is very important. We have to expand the net of working relationships right across the communities. We need to take this message outside of the fine location of the turnover and to go into communities, in inner city communities, where they might think about earthquake only when it happens.
And so the task of the mitigation agency is to make people aware and prepared for earthquakes all year long.
And over the remaining portion of this year, we just start the year, I have tasked the ADPEM to ensure that every month there are simple messages that can be played. Simple messages. You don't need anything that is sophisticated.
Minister Mackenzie wants students to help as well.
Young people is more driven to technology than many of us do. And these are areas that I believe we can use the messaging, using our school children to help to pass this message around the importance of educating ourselves around earthquake and all the associated effects that an earthquake brings.
In addition to making the public aware, other agencies, including the Jamaica Constabulary Force, are reviewing their earthquake policies.
In the Jamaica Constabulary Force, we do have an earthquake policy. And this is now under revision again, because we recognize that we really need to do more in respect to earthquake drills, practices, and so on.
The Jamaica Fire Brigade, too, will revisit some of its training programs among staff and community groups. The October 2023 earthquake has inspired changes.
Coming from our last experience, we realized, though, apart from responders, we do need more trained fire safety inspectors, because we were overwhelmed with requests to do damage assessment, to see if the buildings are safe for persons to re-enter. So we are also training more fire safety inspectors.
But at the end of the day, the dissemination of information is vital.
There cannot be too much information out there in the public domain when it comes on to take necessary precautions around disaster.
Remember, gambling is just a game. Choose to gamble responsibly. Set a budget, avoid chasing losses, and stop gambling when you reach your money limit. For gambling help, call RISE 888-991-4146. A message from the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission.
The hurricane season runs from June 1 through November 30. It normally peaks between August and October. Be prepared. Secure the outside of your home. Check the roof of your house and repair areas that might leak. Also, make sure that zinc sheeting is properly fastened. Trim all large trees within 10 feet of your house. Remove patio furniture, potted plants, garbage bins and toys and place them inside the home. The wind can turn them into missiles. Cover windows with storm shutters. If you don't have storm shutters, use plyboard to cover windows and glass doors. Monitor your radio or television for weather updates and instructions. Be prepared.
The one camping tent. I'm showing why I'm about.
Ended up over here, son of a lift up now.
Welcome to Flatbridge. The infamous Dopey Church.
I never afraid.
If you wash your face with rice water, then you can see Dopey.
No, I don't want to say Dopey, no.
If I turn the yoke to the left, then the airplane will bank to the left.
Oh, that! Oh, that! Where's my bicycle, dog?
Planning, which facilitates orderly development, is a critical pillar to sound environmental management. Last year, you'll recall that we confirmed the Kingston and St. Andrew Pedro Keys development order. We are actively working to complete the parish development orders for St. Thomas, St. Elizabeth, Hanover, and St. James. I'm happy to report the promulgation of the Portmore confirmed development order. I'm also happy to report that NEPA has completed the master plans for Constant Spring, Halfway Tree, and Negril. I'm pleased to report that the beach access and management policy is complete and will be tabled at the next sitting of the House. The policy seeks to ensure Jamaica's beaches are preserved and sustainably managed for present and future generations, and the provision is made for Jamaicans to be able to access their beaches. The existing Fantasy Beach Park in Priory St. Anne will be developed into a parish beach park similar to the Harmony Park in Montego Bay. The government will be upgrading another 9 free community beaches this year. Beyond 2024-2025 budget year, we will develop the Boston Beach Park in Portland, and we will do a major beach park in Negril. Coastal assessments and hazard maps have been completed for 8 priority coastal areas. We have already successfully implemented the 1.3 billion Port Royal Street revetment that protects 1 kilometer of shoreline and the adjacent economic assets, transport routes, and communities in downtown Kingston. In the coming year, the budget includes funding for a revetment at Buff Bay in Portland and shoreline protection at Anato Bay in St. Mary. I'm proud to report that the development of our Development Bank of Jamaica has been accredited by the Green Climate Fund as a national direct access entity that allows for application and implementation of large climate projects of over $250 million. This accreditation is the largest received for any national entity within the Caribbean. I'm happy to announce that today I will table Jamaica's Omnibus Protected Areas Green Policy Paper. In the coming fiscal year, we
last but not least, to indicate what has come out of the discussions between the Prime Minister and myself and the President of the JPS, the new President, I should say, who took office on the 1st of August, Mr. Hugh Grant, in the middle of the recovery efforts. So the first is the JPS billing issues, a very vexing issue for thousands, if not tens of thousands, of customers who received their bills recently. Following the many legitimate concerns raised by Jamaicans across all 14 parishes regarding estimated and actual bills received from JPS for the July-August billing period, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Science, Energy and Telecommunications and Technology and Transport and I decided it was imperative that we host this press conference to have some matters properly aired and presented to the wider public in the interest of transparency and accountability. First, I wish to address some statements being made in the public regarding these bills and the reasons for the bills, the communications with the government, and the facts surrounding both. On Monday, the 19th of August, 2024, Ms. Winsome Callum, JPS Director of Corporate Communications, stated during an interview nationwide that the Jamaica Public Service advised key stakeholders that there would be an increase in the bills for customers. I have done my own research, and I have spoken to many, and I am of the opinion that Ms. Winsome Callum did not intentionally give information that was not accurate or anything untoward. I therefore take it as it is, and we will put that matter to rest. My position is that it was unintentional. A letter was sent to JPS, from JPS to the Ministry of Finance dated July 1st, 2024, regarding 3 facilities: the South Jamaica Power Company, the JPS Borg 114 megawatt combined cycle power plant in Montego Bay, and the New Fortress Energy Jamaica Power Plant. Please note that this letter was not sent to the OUR, neither was it sent to the Permanent Secretary of the Energy Ministry, nor to me as Minister with responsibility for energy. So I'd like to make that categorically clear to clear the air and the confusion that the ministry, the OUR, the permanent secretary, and the minister was not aware of the letter that was sent. It was neither copied to us, it was a straight letter to the Ministry of Finance, which I do find in itself odd. The LNG versus ADO. The letter stated that these plants would have been affected by the relocation of the New Fortress Energy's floating storage and gasification unit ahead of the passage of Beryl. The relocation to avoid the storm damage, the FSRU was decommissioned on July 1st, 2024 at approximately 1 p.m. Following checks made by the ministry, the FSRU was recommissioned on July 6, 2024 at 9 p.m. So if we take it as 5 days. Very important information. Using this information, this means that the South Jamaica Power Company would have had access to LNG as of this July 6, 2024. The same for the NFE Jamaica Power Plant, which JPS stated in their letter was unable to switch to ADO and therefore was unable to supply energy until the FSRU was back in operation. The July 1st letter also stated that the JPS Bogue Power Plant in Montego Bay had 5 days of stored LNG at the plant and would need to switch to ADO upon exhausting the stored fuel. Again, bear in mind that FSRU was out of use for 5 days at best. The only plant that would have used ADO would have been the South Jamaica Power Company for a period of 5 days at a worst case. This raises several questions that JPS and the OUR must now take into consideration and provide responses to the government and the people of Jamaica. Please note that despite the FSRU being out of commission for 5 days and the JPS was granted a 91% reduction on special consumption tax for fuel for the entire month of July as it relates to ADO, the government is therefore interested in knowing how much ADO was used over the period for which the FRSU was relocated. Our in-house calculations have revealed that there are discrepancies with the calculations being represented in the several JPS bills. Our worst-case scenario calculations suggest that a 6% increase in electricity bills would be expected. This is not represented in the bills that are being issued to customers. JPS has stated that 2 factors have accounted for the increased bills being received by their customers: fuel cost and exchange rate. The average increase in the fuel rate on electricity bills between April 24 and July 24 was $1.28 per kilowatt hour. The increase in the fuel rate on electricity bills for August 24 is $7.83 per kilowatt hour. The fuel rate increased by 32% between July and August, up from an average increase of 4% between April and July. Again, bearing in mind that JPS did not have access to LNG for 5 days of the current billing cycle. To quote the July 1st letter again, JPS indicated that they would have to switch to more expensive ADO fuel with LNG, which was made available again. One plant had 5 days storage of LNG, one plant could not use ADO, and another plant had to switch to ADO until LNG was available again. LNG was made available from July 6, as I said before, at 9 p.m. For this reason, I reject the assertion given by JPS that the cost of ADO fuel is the reason for the increased bills being sent to Jamaicans. And I urge them to recalculate. I urge JPS to recalculate and recalculate and recalculate and get it right. I'll now move to the billing exchange rate. The billing exchange rate moved from 0.8% or $1.23 between July and August 2024. Month over month, this is not the largest increase for the April to August period. In May 2024, the billing exchange rate jumped from $2.23, or 14%. In other words, the month-to-month impact of the exchange rate is not as severe as JPS is attempting to have customers believe, and therefore would not have such a dramatic impact on their current bills when compared to their previous bills. Given that this 32% increase in the fuel rate was unprecedented, it raised concerns for me as minister as to why the OUR did not investigate the cause for such an anomaly in the fuel rate provided by JPS, bearing in mind that no information has been provided to suggest that JPS had to operate using ADO for fuel for a prolonged period of time, given that the supply was disrupted for 5 days, and that based on communications from JPS, only one plant would have been utilizing ADO for the period of disruption. These are questions that must be addressed and factors that raise great concern for me as minister and for the government, and of course all well-thinking Jamaicans, regarding the billing practices of the JPS and the level of oversight being provided by OUR to protect customers. I have subsequently written to the president of JPS this morning with a letter with 8 questions that I have asked to be answered to allow us to continue a deep dive in relation to this billing saga. I'm not sure if you have the letter to put up on the screen. Huh? Okay, the letter will be shared in a media package. Let's move to the Electricity Disaster Fund. The Electricity Disaster Fund, as stated in the Rules of Procedure for Operations and Administration, has a primary aim of reducing the exposure of JPS to damages inflicted on its transmission and distribution system by natural disasters in the absence of traditional insurance coverage from firms that specialize in this business. While one of the main objectives in the stated policy of the Disaster Fund is to minimize the financial impact on ratepayers, since they have been required to pay higher rates in the aftermath of a natural disaster. The way the fund was designed, JPS may only claim on the fund for damages to its transmission and distribution system. This means that only JPS can directly benefit from the fund in the event of a disaster. As Minister with responsibility for energy, I have a serious issue with the inequity of the fund in its current form. Remember that the fund, up to the start of Beryl, had in excess of $50 million US, for which my understanding, if I remember correct, PS, the JPS would have claimed or made a request for $7 million, for which they got $4.5 million US, which was to be enable them to prepare for the hurricane, to get materials, equipment, etc., in the event of a hurricane. So it is imperative that we plan and protect the transmission and distribution system. But as evidenced by Beryl, one of the major factors following the passage of a natural disaster such as hurricane may unavoidably be the cost of fuel and the inability of the JPS to immediately commence the distribution of actual readings for bills and the inability of customers to immediately commence the payment of bills. Having considered this, I'll be making suggestions to the Cabinet that the government revisits the fund and its use and purpose in a way that will benefit both Jamaicans who contributed towards its $50 million balance, as well as maintaining its ability to provide safeguards in the absence of readily available insurance coverage for JPS. So what does that mean in simple terms? It simply means that the fund must have a component in it to assist the customers who are affected by the disaster to be able to get use of that fund to offset increased cost of fuel and other things that may come about, because as it stands now, only JPS is the major beneficiary. So in the discussions of what do we do based on this bill saga that we are faced with, one of the things that I suggested was, can we use the Emergency Development Fund to cushion the impact of these bills while JPS does what they can do? And that is a discussion that is currently taking place. But based on what I've read, it may not be possible. Let us move to the estimated bills. A separate issue must also be addressed is the ongoing practice of issuing estimated bills to consumers who have been without electricity since burial. The utility provider must have the compassion and the capacity to isolate these customers during this most unfortunate and prolonged inconvenience. It compounds the discomfort and the misery of these customers and adds to their many challenges to have them concerned with exorbitant bills. Irrespective of what the regulations of the existing license allows, this comes across to the JPS customers and Jamaicans across the island as uncaring and tone deaf. I know of one particular customer that had JPS power for 6 days out of the current billing cycles. All 6 days were prior to the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Beryl, as they did not get re-energized until 2 days after the end of the billing cycle. It was concerning to know that the customer was given a bill totaling approximately $108,000. This was a customer in St. Elizabeth, the most severely affected parish, and with one of the most severely affected communities. The government is resolute that the current situation cannot stand. I have made the position clear to the leadership of the JPSCO and will be making recommendations to the Cabinet for changes to be made in respect to the regulator. Based on the circumstances, the government has been left with no choice but to pursue a special audit and investigation into JPS bills published in the aftermath of the hurricane. I will make this position known formally to the government-appointed members of the board and ensure that the facts are unearthed and presented to the public upon completion. As it relates to the JPS license, it is a fact that the current JPS license expires in June 2027, and in the normal course we'd expect to begin negotiations 2 years prior to the expiration. The government is extremely concerned about the current license and the regulations surrounding it. We intend to ensure that in the future a regulatory framework is created which is ultimately to benefit the people and customers of the JPS in Jamaica. As such, we are signaling early our intent to ensure a complete review of the regulatory framework to ensure that it is indeed accrues to the benefit of the people of Jamaica. We can all appreciate the impact of global warming and the fact that we may be facing more risk of natural disaster in the future. So going forward, it is not acceptable to have a regulator which has conducted itself in a manner which has raised valid concerns in the public that it is not vigilant enough to hold the utility to account, while allowing the utility to pass through a 30% increase in rates in the aftermath of a hurricane, while having a $50 million disaster fund sitting in the bank in reserve. This should never happen again, and I'm of the view that the lethargic response of the OUR to the JPS abysmal handling of the peril issue has made it patently clear that the OUR will have to be reconstituted to ensure that it operates in a more effective and efficient manner and in a way which ultimately protects the people of Jamaica. And let me say again that everything that I have seen since becoming minister is all geared towards the JPS, and nothing is in there for the customers and the suffering people of Jamaica. There has to be equity. So, however, it cannot be business as usual, and I have compiled a list of questions that I will share with the media that have been directed to JPS following the debacle. In closing, Mr. Grant, the new JPS CEO, has been based in the most adversely affected area since his appointment on August 1st, 2024. That's the new president and CEO of the JPS. Sir Grant is a returning Jamaican with a wealth of knowledge and experience in the energy sector, and his stewardship of the utility company is crucial at this time. Since his appointment, we have seen improvements in the restorative efforts of the JPS, despite him coming into office at a time such as this. I have made it clear to the new leadership of the JPS that it cannot be business as usual, and the major spike in the bills is simply untenable. The government of Jamaica is sensitive to the challenges being faced by the thousands of Jamaicans, 3,500 as of yesterday, which has still not been restored, and for those who have been sent bills during the current billing cycle, which are burdensome and downright unfair. The audit is intended to inform solutions to long-standing issues and complaints about the JPS billing system. Concerning the current billing cycle, the government has been actively in discussions with the JPS about addressing the unfair and unjust bills sent to customers. In our estimation, the JPS has promised to present a proposal by Friday of this week to address concerns about the bills sent during the current cycle. We will wait anxiously on that, and I understand we had a meeting as late as 9 o'clock last night with the President and myself and the Prime Minister, and he has asked for more time to be able to do some recalculations and also have discussions with the OUR. So that is progress, and it gives me hope that there is going to be good news in the coming days. But in the interim, I received this morning an update from the JPS, which I want to share with you. And basically, it says over the past week, JPS has restored 7,000 customers in St. Elizabeth. As of yesterday evening, 3,247 customers remained without electricity, with 34,549 customers already restored within the parish. JPS continues to navigate factors such as the weather and the terrain, but remains on track to meet, let me repeat that, remains on track to meet its commitment to the government to achieve full restoration of electricity services by August 31st. In the interim, based on my discussions and some concerns that I raised, JPS has suspended disconnections for the non-payment of bills just before the Hurricane Beryl impacted the island on July 3rd. In recognition of the challenges faced by many after the hurricane and the higher bills now being seen, JPS has extended the disconnection process from August 15th to September 15th. So it means that there will be no disconnections until September 15th, which is commendable based on the suffering of so many people, even those who have gotten back light and just simply can't pay the bills because they have been damaged so badly and their livelihoods have been affected. Also, again on my insistence, JPS will continue to facilitate flexible payment plans for persons who need more time to pay. Requests are being dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and customers can make requests for payment plans through JPS mobile app or by calling the Customer Care Center, and of course, keeping the ministry in the loop to track that. What is it, JPS for? What's the email address? JPS complaints at mset.gov.jm. JPS complaints? Complaints? Complaints. Thank you, PS. JPS complaints with a S at mset.gov.jm, and also OUR complaints at mset.gov.jm. So we have set up two specific email accounts so that the ministry can track and see what's happening in relation to the customer to JPS discussions, and also the OUR, as OUR obviously is the regulator, and of course you may need to reach to them at some point if you're not getting any joy. So the third bit of good news is zero consumption for customers out of supply. While the JPS has a regulatory requirement to ensure customers are billed in a timely manner, it appreciates the frustration and experience by customers without supply who have received bills for the period that they are out. In cases where estimated bills were sent out to persons who had no supply, JPS will cancel these bills and generate new bills representing zero consumption and therefore $0 owed for those bills. And there are several of them out there. We have been hearing about them from the first time of the estimated bills that were sent out some weeks ago. So again, this is good news. It means that for those persons who have not had their lights restored, that were affected by beryl, that received estimated bills or any other kind of bills, those bills will be zero rated, and therefore there will be no funds owed to the JPS on those accounts. JPS has also implemented other initiatives to support customers during this challenging time. A 20% discount on the bills of about 350,000 customers who use 150 kilowatt hours or less electricity for the month. This amounted to almost $300 million. A one-off $1,500 credit for all active prepaid customers, discounted for approximately $25 billion. And the company will also give $5,000 to approximately 10,000 customers who remained without electricity after August 12th. This is a total of $50 million. And JPS, again, is indicating that they are giving back to the community in other tangible ways through back-to-school support, provisions of mobile charging for devices, care packages, and much-needed ice and water. So, ladies and gentlemen, and frustrated JPS customers, I think that this is something that can be commended as a start. But the big elephant in the room remains, and that is these unconscionable bills that were sent out in recent days. I can say to you that I am confident that based on the discussions that I have had with the President and his tone, that we are going to see definitively something in the next few days. The government is strong and insistent that a complete rollback of the increases is the only thing that will make this government and this minister happy. And I think that it is achievable and attainable. And I urge the JPS and the OUR to work assiduously from now until Friday, so that on Friday morning, when Cock put on him drawers and I get to my office, that I will have a love letter waiting on me, which will be announced for the people of Jamaica and the customers of the JPS. It is time for us to stand up and to protect and defend the people of Jamaica and the customers of the JPS. And in this minister and this government, you have that person, you can be assured. Thank you, JPS, for what you have done so far. Thank you for what you are about to do come Friday, if I should preempt you. And I am saying again that this saying, out of adversity comes opportunity, is exactly what we are going to do. The adversity of this beryl saga, we are going to make the amendments and get to the bottom of the billing, and also relook at the license and the regulatory framework that governs the license in relation to the OUR and the JPS, and how we transition when we are in normal times to a disaster, and what place and right does the government have at that point to step in and direct the ship. Because as I said, right now, I'm all bark and no bite. So can you imagine if I had bark and bite, where we will be this morning? So you have my assurance. And I want to close by thanking all the hard-working JPS and OUR staff who have been working assiduously, tirelessly to try and get restoration to the entire Jamaica. My positions taken are not taken against the staff. It is taken against the management, the people who make the decisions, the people who have the power to do things in a disaster at both the OUR and the JPS. And in this case, I don't believe that we have transitioned from normal times to disaster times 6 weeks after or 5 weeks after a disaster. I think we could have been much more proactive, and if we were much more proactive by moving into disaster mode, we would not be standing here today. We would have been fully restored. But it is what it is, and I look forward to the restoration on the 31st of August, and look forward to continue discussions with the JPS and the OUR as to how we can protect the customers of the JPS and by extension other utilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. At this time, we'll open the floor to questions.
Good morning, everyone. Kelly Shaw Williams, Television Jamaica. Minister, every time we have these sort of conversations, you hear complaints about persons saying that it's because JPS has a monopoly on the market in terms of the distribution and transmission of electricity in Jamaica. With JPS's license due to expire in 2027, why is the government so reluctant in opening up the market? And can we see this conversation happening in Parliament in terms of amending the license to allow for such competition?
So we have the Electricity Act that we had our final meeting last week, which will now go to Parliament. And I think in that act, you will see quite a bit of fundamental changes as it relates to the Act of 2015. The big issue with the point you have raised about competition is whether or not the market is big enough for two players. And the fact of the matter is that is something that we are grappling with. But I do think that where we are today, based on the experiences that we have had, that discussion will come back on the table in the review that we are going to do, the in-depth review and audit that we are going to do, which will help us and inform us in our negotiations for the renewal or issuance of a new license. So it has a double effect. We will go in there well-armed and well-prepared, rather than just going into a negotiation, looking at the existing license and making some changes, and at the end of the day, we end up in a situation similar to where we are now, which means that the JPS customers are not protected sufficiently. So you will hear more on that for sure, based on the debate in Parliament on the Electricity Act, and of course, obviously, the audit and review of the current JPS license and the billing.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Trisha Gay Kelly from CVM. Just want to know, is the government at liberty or in a position to impose penalties on the JPS if it is not satisfied at the end of the day?
No, OUR. And the OUR's position, which I'm not in agreement, is that they are not prepared to start anything until such time as restoration is completed, and then they will do a post-mortem in relation to all that happened in relation to JPS's actions or inactions for restoration. From my vantage point, you only do post-mortems when you're dead. So I'm not quite sure what a post-mortem will do after the fact. And that's the point I made earlier, that you need to get involved and get sure and oversight in relation to the recovery effort and use the powers that you have as a regulator to impose sanctions and fines as you go along, because the fact is that JPS has missed every deadline. So what has happened to make them more efficient and treat the matter with more urgency? But again, the OUR was set up to be an independent regulator to kind of give government and the JPS somebody in between. But I do believe strongly that when disasters come, that everything should fall and allow the government to take charge in relation to the restoration efforts of whatever the situation may occur at the time.
Good morning, Kimon Francis from the Gleaner. Minister, you stated that the government is basically deeply concerned how long JPS used ADO and the waiver that was given in terms of its usage. Is fraud among the concerns of the government?
Well, I wouldn't get to that point as yet, for sure. The fact of the matter is that we have made the information that we have public. And the bottom line is that a special audit will get into all the aspects of billing, and it's not necessarily in this particular bill cycle for Beryl. It will, I'm sure, look at historic billings and basically get the necessary answers. But the OUR will have to work with that special audit because they are the regulator who would have to supply pertinent information. So it would have to be, the fact that it's independent would still have, OUR still have a big part to play in terms of the information and the data that would be required.
How frequently do the government-appointed members to the board update the government and cabinet to read what is taking place at JPS?
Annual report. So the OUR reports the Cabinet Office. It does not report to the ministry. So I'm not quite sure what the reporting mechanism is. But again, that also is something that will have to be looked at because obviously if we are the government or any government of the day, then obviously they need to be supplied with information on a real-time basis so that policies and that can be implemented if necessary, policy changes. So again, all of this is going to be a part of the review, both current review and of course a part of the renewal of the license or the issuance of a new license by 2027, which should start early next year in order to have the time to make sure that everything is in place by the time the expiry of that 2027 license is, I think it's June 2027, if my memory serves me correct. Oh, JPS board members. JPS has government has 3 JPS seats on the board for which the minister appoints. And those are in place, and I think the life of the board, is it? Our government boards are 3 years, and you recall that government still has a 19.9% stake in the JPS, which is what gives us the seats on the board. And I can indicate that I called an emergency meeting yesterday with the 3 members of the board to get information as to whether they were aware of the rate hike, for which they were not, and secondly, to give them the government's position in relation to the next board meeting, which is scheduled for the end of this month into the first week of September. So those 3 board members, along with the PS and myself, met yesterday, and I told them in no uncertain terms what the government's position was and what their position they are to take at the board meeting.
Morning, Minister. Mahiri Stewart from Nationwide News here. Is there anything you can give us as it regards the amount of complaints you've received since you've launched the email JPS complaints?
Well, huh? Okay, we'll supply that. We have a media package for you after which has quite a lot of information in relation to calculations and other things that we have. But yes, I would expect the last time that I did something on social media, it was inundated, and I expect no different this morning. We launched it yesterday afternoon, about 3 o'clock? About 300. So we have about 300 already. Not to mention how many I have on my phone. I don't know. Looks like the entire JPS customer base has my cellular number. And when they can't get any answers or any joy, they come to me and I try and help each and every one of them as they come to me, because I understand the frustration and the anger and the... The most questions you ever get at a press conference.
Regarding the estimated bills, is there a criteria for customers who are eligible? So is it only for those who are still without electricity but have received estimated bills, or is it for customers, for everybody who received bills?
So my understanding based on what I read is that it would be for those who would have got estimated bills while having no power, and in relation to those who have gotten bills and have issues in terms of how to pay the bills, that they are allowing for a compassionate payment plan, which I insisted on, because I can fully understand that there are some people that would love to pay the bill, but they just don't have it. So I'm watching to see how that plays out, because they say it's a case by case, but there's going to be a lot of cases. So I need to see how that pans out in terms of that everybody who has an issue and can demonstrate that they have an issue is treated justly and fairly.
Another question, Minister. You were speaking earlier about the EDF, the fund, the disaster fund, and problems you're having with the inequity of it. We know that JPS is putting things in place to ensure that people specifically in St. Elizabeth get the $5,000 discount, and that's going to be spread amongst the customers, and it's going to total, I believe you said, up to $50 million. Is it that there's legislation that prevents them from using the fund to do things of that manner?
You have a document here that says the Office of Utilities Regulation, Electricity Disaster Fund, Rules of Procedure for Operations and Administration, Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. This was dated September 2007. It is 47 pages long, and it has nothing in here for the customer. And the bottom line is it's flawed on that basis, because it cannot be that the customers is who fund this fund. The JPS customers, and every bill that you get, there is something that comes out of it to go towards this fund, and at the end of the day, the only person that can draw on this fund is the monopoly. So I don't get it. So this, as I said, this document here will have to be revised in the overall review, because I have already made a suggestion that part of this fund should be used to cushion the JPS customers, not specifically to the saga with this particular bill increase, but sustained to allow you to get back on your feet for those who are needy. So yes, but it is what it is. This is it. As of right now, this is it. I'm quite surprised that September 2007, and this is what I got. So I'm not quite sure if it has been reviewed, but I would expect, well, I would expect that after 17 years, you would have learned a few things in relation to, because this wouldn't be the first, this would not be the first disaster. We have had Ivan, we have had several. So again, this is a fundamental issue in relation to equity. I just don't understand how you can take customers' money and at the end of the day, in a disaster, when they are the affected persons, along with the JPS, that there's nothing of significance or substance that you can lawfully do based on the... So again, It's on my radar. Trust me, on my radar. I hope I have enough time to complete it, and I hope I have enough time after next year to continue the work.
Kimon again, what's the value of the ADO concessions given to JPS?
400 and round figures, between 430 and 450 million. I have it here. I came well armed this morning for you. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. The SET exemption of the waiver is $348,396,077.27, and the ad valorem exemption is $48,004,678.61. So that's about 400 million, no? Little under 400 million. So, again, my figures, internal figures, that I have gotten from my technical people, which includes Petrojam, is that there should have been no more than a 6% hike in electricity bills, based on the fact that the LNG was only out for 5 days. So again, those are questions that are going to need to be answered. And as I said before, I have, and you get a copy of it, written to the President this morning with 8 questions surrounding the billing, this billing cycle. So again, thank you very much. And as I said, oh, you have one?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Yeah.
You spoke earlier about the letter that JPS had sent to the Ministry of Finance on July 1, and you had expressed concern that it wasn't sent as well to OUR and MSET as a ministry. Were there any protocols breached by them not doing that, or is it just something you wish they would have done?
Well, put it this way. I find it very curious that the letter was written on July 1st, addressed to the Honorable Nigel Clark, and it was under the signature of a Mr. Vernon Douglas, the Chief Financial Officer, and it is neither copied to his president, it is neither copied to his board, it is neither copied to the OUR, it is neither copied to the permanent secretary, or it is neither copied to the minister with responsibility for all. So the only thing that I can think is that Mr. Douglas is in charge of all of us. That's the only conclusion. For him to be able to write a letter like this as a CFO to the Minister of Finance without any copies to the relevant stakeholders, which includes a minister, includes his president, includes his board, who I can categorically state did not, my 3 members, attended no board meeting and were not contacted. And they were not contacted on the estimated bills either. So JPS will have to deal with this. This is not in my scope. But the bottom line is I do find it very, very curious. And I think that answers and sanctions are deserved. Look forward to Friday. I wish I could go to sleep and wake up and it was Friday. I wake up, but we have tomorrow and then Friday. But Friday is D-Day in relation to trying to bring this matter to an amicable solution and settlement. And hopefully we will never have to go back here again. Thank you very much.